Welcome to latest episode of First Word in Sport, Friday morning. How are you on this overcast Friday morning in London, James?
I'm very good, Luke. Thank you. Yeah, for some reason, the YouTube I was watching this morning, the boys watched highlights of Bradford Bolton last night, and it came up Liverpool 4, Barcelona 0 in the Champions League all those years ago. So good time to me as a Liverpool fan there. Not so good at the moment, but yeah. How about yourself?
The in-laws are on their way, James. It could be a long 10 days, but that is life. I'm sure the kids will enjoy it. Let's catch up on what we've had this week in terms of football. It's been a pretty quiet week. So what we're thinking is we'll do something a little bit different this week. We'll do a brief summary of some of the bigger stories just quickly. And then what we thought would be quite interesting exercise is to look at each team in the league and have a look at potential positions that they need to strengthen. Because one thing we'll see in the coming weeks is lots of transfer chat and then also players who could potentially leave. So we'll have a look through each of those teams. It's quite nice when it's a quiet week of football to try and do these slightly different things. But let's touch on the week's action. So we started with midweek. We obviously had Manchester City Palace. Very comfortable win for Man City, 3-0. Slightly surprised that the team City put out, made lots of changes. Fair play to Guardiola. I mean, we do have to sort of put the disclaimer out there that he is, bringing in £80 million players like Marmoush. It's not like he's rolling out the kids, when we're talking about Man City changes.
Yeah, and apparently Phil Foden's back to his brilliant best after one back heel goal for assist to Semenyo. Yeah, I mean, they've got the squad, haven't they, to do it? So they did it. Palace are on the beach. They really are on the beach. They're just waiting for their Conference League final in almost 2 weeks' time, isn't it? The 24th, I believe, against Rayo Vallecano and Leipzig. Yeah, so comfortable 3-0. Still put the pressure on Arsenal a bit. They're ahead now in goal difference as well, so that's a big thing for Man City as well.
What's amazing is when you look at that league table, it felt like Arsenal were in complete control of this title. That VAR decision just looms bigger and bigger and bigger. Without that VAR decision, City would be favourites.
Absolutely. And I was saying to my mates yesterday that, yes, they will beat Burnley on Monday night, Arsenal. However, and Man City then have to go to Bournemouth on Tuesday night, which is, we all know, is a tough game. But if Man City win that, which I fully expect them to, because they are in a title race and I think they've won 10 of the last 14, City. So this is what they usually do at times. And then they go to the last day of the season. Anything can happen. Villa will hopefully be on the beach after winning the Europa League final previous Wednesday. Man City, full of confidence. If they've won the FA Cup, they've won the double. Obviously, that's tomorrow. And the pressure is on Arsenal. And Crystal Palace, they might rest all their players, but they're only playing Sunday, Wednesday. And if they don't play their first team on Sunday, those players won't play for 10 days. And we hear a lot about it, don't we, in the news, and players and managers and coaches alike talk about rhythm. And they want to play. These players won't want to have 10 days off waiting for that game, unless they've got niggles, obviously, like this. But yeah, that's still a tough game for Arsenal. And because of the pressure of 21 years of not winning the title. If they'd won the title in the last couple of years and Arteta had won something meaningful, not a COVID FA Cup, then the pressure would be less on them. But because they haven't won anything for 21 years, still think there's a twist and a turn to come, like last day of the season. Never easy winning a Premier League, especially an away game as well, to win the Premier League. Stranger things have happened, and we always talk about it. Pressure does funny things to people, even at the top level of sport.
Let's talk about the most dramatic sort of incident of the week, and that was the VAR decision and penalty at Motherwell. So Motherwell Celtic, it's 2-2. We're 99 minutes into the game, James. Throw into the box. At first view, it looks like two players just going up for a header. And it goes to VAR. Penalty Celtic. Iheanacho scores it. Fair play to him for, there's a lot of pressure on that. What are we doing here, James?
On first look, And on the Midian's look, it's still never a penalty. It's one of the worst decisions. It is the worst decision I think I've seen on VAR. It's horrendous. Just look at the Celtic players' reaction and the fans and Martin Hill and everyone concerned. The commentators have made absolutely no mention of it being a handball or a elbow. The referee's gone over, looked at it for 20 seconds, and then just given it straight away. He's clearly headed the ball because it's gone 15 yards out for another throw-in. It's the last kick of the game. And Hearts or Motherwell are absolutely fuming because they've still got chances to get into Europe next season or qualify for Europe next season. Hearts are absolutely apoplectic because they would have gone to Celtic Park tomorrow with 3 points ahead with 6 goal difference as well. And then you're looking at the other decisions that have happened. The Old Firm game where the Celtic player should have been sent off for a hack on Mikey Moore midway through the first half. That's a straight red card, not even given a yellow card. And then in a corresponding game, the Motherwell versus Hearts last Saturday, Hearts should have had 2 goals given to them. 2 bad VAR decisions. Conspiracy theorists, and I am kind of one of them with VAR, and I openly admit that. I'm sorry, but that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, they've come out and obviously said it was a handball, the referee did his job, they're backing him. Of course they're going to say, they're not going to say at this stage of the season, it's not a handball. But please, it's never a handball in a million years. It's an absolute disgraceful decision. And it's kind of, if Celtic go on to win tomorrow, which they have to do, beat Hearts tomorrow at 12:30, they win the title. But it will go down as just absolutely obnoxious what's happened. It's just, the referee's completely bottled it, absolutely bottled it, and made the wrong decision. And there's no 2 ways about it. It's pathetic what's happened. And Hearts will feel really let down by the authorities in the last week or so.
I think the only good thing is, from a Hearts perspective, is the destiny of the title is still in their own hands. If you want to win a title, go to your nearest rivals and get a result. I know it's not what they wanted in terms of how it sort of played out, but it's still in their hands, and that's the only way they can look at it. They can't be feeling sorry for themselves. They have to get up and show that they're worthy of winning a title. Sometimes you have to, you're going to have bumps and along the way, and we talk about it in Premier League. It's amazing how many decisions the big teams get, and it's amazing in Scotland how many decisions the big teams get. It is unfortunately just sort of nature of the beast. I think the only thing that was surprising is that decision, it wasn't the case of it being at Celtic Park, where the crowd was clamouring for it. I think everything, just what was weird about everything with regard to it was, one, it even got looked at in the first place. As you say, when the header's cleared like that, it was never a case of, oh, was that a handball? You watched it in real time and you're like, what? It didn't look in any shape or form. And then to make the decision so quickly. And I think what was also amazing was just the lack of angles that they have to actually make these decisions. And then to come to such a clear decision. Honestly, it's not good. It's not good for sport, I don't think. Anyway, one interesting thing, James, Spanish La Liga. So I haven't really heard it talked about, but the relegation battle. So obviously 3 teams go down. But we have an almighty relegation battle. So 2 games to go. Real Sociedad in 8th place aren't safe yet, James.
Quite remarkable. Is there 5 points difference between 19th and 8th, I think, isn't there? I know they play each other. A lot of play.
So, there might be a scenario where, because various teams play each other, that Sociedad are actually safe. I would need to have a look at it in slightly more detail. But in essence, you've got a 6-point gap between 19th and 8th place. And obviously, there's the difference in terms of goal difference as well. So, more realistically, let's say Athletic Club in 9th. But you have you've got some pretty big teams in there as well. So you've got your Valencias and Sevilla, Espanols, even your Gironas, Real Vallecanos. You've got some big teams there. It's amazing how a couple of bad weeks here, results go against you, and you could find a pretty big team disappears from La Liga.
Seville were in real trouble a couple of weeks ago, and they've won a couple of games, and they've got themselves back into the mix kind of thing, and they're up to about 14th. So, I mean, as they say, one win, they can jump about 8 or 9 places. Yeah, it's quite funny. And then last night I did see that Kylian Mbappe came on for Real Madrid and got quite roundly booed by his home, by the home fans at home. So
I
it'll be very interesting to see what happens at Real Madrid this summer. We'll see all the noises, Jose Mourinho taking over. Perez came out on one of the most extraordinary press conferences in the week, the president, and basically had a pop at all the fans. And I'm going to call elections and all this business. So that's going to go on. Then they've got the issue of the players, who's going to stay, who's going to go. It is a massive summer for Real Madrid.
well,
Massive summer.
Mbappe, we touched on it last time about the 30 million signatures on this, protest about wanting to get him out. Last I heard, it's up to 61 million. You
I
either
can't
have
see
a
how he stays there, though.
you either
Because
have a
after
bot
what he
going
last
crazy
night,
or he's gone. I don't see. There's no real coming back from that. And what's amazing is if you actually look at his numbers this season, so I think he's got something like 11 Champions League goals, maybe 24 La Liga goals or something in that sort of region. And he's not played every game. He's had a decent season all said and done. He isn't the problem as to why Real Madrid are struggling.
he's got 41 in 42 games for Real Madrid this season. I was looking this morning. And he gets booed by his own fans when he came on last night in their 2-0 victory. I can't see him staying there, but we talked about it last week. Who can afford him?
Honestly, I think he would do a good job on the left side of Villa's attack.
Get Jack Grealish back.
But yeah, no, the Spanish situation. That is just crazy. But it's going to be something to watch certainly over the next week or two. As you say, it looks like Jose is going to go back in there. I don't really know what they do because clearly it is such a mess. The problem is he'll go in there and he'll ruffle a few feathers and he'll try and get rid of players, and you almost need someone like him to go in there to try and do that. But one of the problems you have is you do potentially tank the value of quite a few players, because once people know that, let's say he has to pick between Mbappe and Vinicius, whoever he doesn't pick, their value is almost done. Like, not done, but it's very difficult then. You're not in a position to sell them. You're not in a position of power anyway.
Yeah, and then you can talk about the midfield lads, Camavinga and Tchouameni and things like that. They've got big decisions to make. And talking of Camavinga, he didn't get in the French national squad, the 26-man squad that was announced yesterday for the World Cup coming up. He didn't get in it. That squad was so top-heavy for strikers and things like that. I can't believe I know he's been injured and he hasn't been great, but he's a fantastic footballer. They've got so many forwards there that just won't play. Just look at their forward line. You've got Mbappe, Dembele, Dure, Barcola, Elise, to name a few. They picked Mateta as well. It's just odd that they haven't picked Camavinga, considering they've picked N'Golo Kante and things like this. Yeah, so big decisions at Real Madrid.
I think that's the thing that stands out. So just talking about that French squad is, I keep hearing people say, "Oh, it's one of the greatest squads ever," and I think in terms of attacking talent, that forward, say from the front three, potentially is up there with anything we've ever seen. Obviously Brazil might have might want to challenge it. Remember those days of Ronaldo and Rivaldo and Romario, and we have seen some pretty special ones, but that's a pretty special forward line. But I look at that midfield, and honestly, Zaire Emery's quality, Tchouameni, he's decent. I don't think he's the player that they hoped he would become. Are you really relying on the likes of Kante and Rabiot? That's not a midfield that's going to worry anyone.
Now, defensively, they've still got Saliba, Upamecano, Konate.
Yeah, but it depends on what
Keepers.
right. So it depends on what Konate turns up. If it's the Konate who's played for Liverpool all year, he's absolute garbage. If it's Konate from last year, then great. Even Saliba's massively hit and miss.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just look at that squad and Dina at left back. If I'm assuming Hernandez will start at left back, but I don't know. The goalkeepers, pretty average.
Yeah, and they've got decision who plays up front, Dembele or Mbappe. Yeah, well, Mbappe will play because he's captain, isn't he? So yeah.
But yeah, I think everyone's waxing lyrical about it. We will see. I don't think you normally win things when you're that sort of top heavy, but maybe I'm doing a disservice to how good their defense is. But who knows? Let's talk about the FA Cup, Youth Cup happened between Man United and Man City. A couple of aspects to this, just quickly. So what we're seeing is we're seeing the kids of some of the players we grew up watching sort of coming to the fore. So you had the likes of Heskey. His son's been in Man City's youth teams. I remember when Villa played their Man City's youth team last year, Heskey featured. Then he scored a crucial goal yesterday as City won 2-1. I think there was a couple of takeaways. One was you had a really weird situation around the game where it ended up being played at City's smaller training ground, effectively, which has a 7,000-seater capacity. United wanted it. They were willing for it to take place at Old Trafford, and City said no. And it just feels like a real shame for these kids who have the opportunity to play in a massive stadium and it gets sort of taken away from them. I don't know. It just seems a bit not mean, but against the sort of spirit of what football's about, really.
Yeah, because they refused to play at the Etihad, which it should be called, because they want more time to get their new part of their stand opened up for the last game of the season, getting fitter in a week and a bit's time. Yeah, it should have been played at a bigger ground, but yeah, I mean, what a goal, by the way, by Samba, who is the son of Christopher Samba, who played for Blackburn in a day. Brilliant free kick. Yeah, the City, I mean, Heskey's played for the Man City first team in the Carabao Cup, I believe, and they had Max Elaine playing. Obviously, they're going to hoover up all young kids. They've got some great talent. But I mean, and then Darren Fletcher, the Man United under 18 coach, he was right in saying then all the announcements and it's like City were taking over. It's the FA Cup competition. It's not like the league kind of thing. So yeah, it's just Man City trying to prove they're the bigger and better than everyone at that youth grade age. But yeah, it's interesting watching some of these kids, as you said, whose dads we knew growing up, kind of thing, watching them play.
Samba wasn't a bad player, by the way.
Yeah.
So one player we should just touch on briefly is United have got a youngster called JJ Gabriel. He's been on the radar a little while. If you're not familiar with him, I think it may not be next year, but certainly within 18 months, you will become familiar with him. He looks an outrageous prospect at the age group. I saw earlier in the week he got the award for Player of the Year for the under-18s. So in that Premier League under-18 competition, he got Player of the Year. He is only 15. I think United have potentially got something a little bit special there. I mean, these things don't always pan out like that, but normally when they're performing so far above their age group like that, you tend to know there's something a little bit special about them. And he is definitely a player to watch.
Yeah, I've not seen anything really of him, just heard the news about how good he is. And when you hear about news, you kind of take note kind of thing. But hopefully he doesn't go the way of Ravel Morrison back in the day anyway.
Well, we've certainly seen lots of high quality youngsters not make it, or just be a bit disappointing. But I sense that he's the real deal, and unfortunately, I mean, maybe Liverpool could poach him, like they do with most of the good youngsters these days.
Ferguson was a master of that, but now the rules have obviously changed. You've got to live within a certain radius of the club and things like that. But Ferguson was a master of that back in the day. Talking of managers and Alex Ferguson, hope he's okay. We've not heard any news about his illness. Just the Premier League doing their managers of the season. So this is run by the Premier League and fans, and I don't know if it's journalists, whoever. The nominees came out in a week. So Keith Andrews, we all agree. Mikel Arteta, it kind of has to be in there. 6 in there, by the way. Pep Guardiola. I'm not sure why he's in there. Iraola. Yeah. Regis Lebris. Yep, because they expect everyone to go down. And then an interim manager did it. He's managed 15 games. Michael Carrick. Please explain.
Words fail me sometimes, James. I think what I find really interesting about this type of award, and we end up had in previous years where you see Pep get given Manager of the Year when City have had a great, like, they've won the title, they've won whatever, and you go, is he really Manager of the Year? Yes, they've won everything, but he's also spent billions and billions of pounds. He has the best team. And this is where I'd have an issue in some respects, even with Guardiola being on that list. Man City have been unbelievably average this year, if not poor, okay, relative to the money that they have and everything else. But been bang average. Pep shouldn't be anywhere near that list, honestly. And, and you touch on like Carrick. Carrick has been there half a season. And you honestly telling me he should be getting in that list ahead of the likes of Farker, even an Emery? Like, one of the sort of categories I'd look at would be is you have to look at preseason expectations and what was expected of the teams. Okay, Man United had a squad where they were expected to challenge for, top 5 or so. Right, that was the expectation. Obviously, they struggled a little bit early on. No European football or anything else this year to navigate. Yeah, brilliant. But Carrick, no. I'm sorry. It's just an absolute joke. Even someone like Farker, that Leeds team, for him to keep them up has been an unbelievable job. That's a much better achievement, keeping that Leeds team in the league, than what Carrick's done.
100% agree with you. Obviously, it's not the actual proper Managers of the Year award, but it's still the Premier League.
Well, okay. So let's just, if we're not going to do it properly, don't even have that award then.
They are doing it properly. It's just the Premier League for getting fans involved. It's a new thing, I believe, anyway, or kind of a newish.
If you're not going to do it properly, throw it in the bin.
Well, they are going to do it properly at the end of the. They announced their Premier League Player of the Season, like kind of midway through August or September this year. So anyway, it's we should do one. Who's the worst manager of the in the season, kind of thing. Well, I know who'd be number one. But yeah. Anyway, it's always quite entertaining. Should we move on to Spygate?
Spygate. So for those who are unfamiliar with Spygate, so Southampton had been accused of spying by Middlesbrough on their training ground. I think the EFL have got themselves in the right pickle here. They added a rule in after Leeds got caught doing this a few years ago, and it's important. One thing that's important here is to put into context the punishment that Leeds got. So Leeds got a fine of £200,000. And a new rule was put into place saying that you couldn't do it. But I don't know about you. I feel like the idea that Southampton beat Middlesbrough in the week. So Southampton will go and play Hull in the final. It's meant to take place, was it on 24th of May at Wembley. There's lots of talk as to whether Southampton will get thrown out of the competition or face another punishment. And basically what's transpired is one of the employees of Southampton had been at the training ground, had access via the golf course, and had been recording some things that Middlesbrough were doing. Bear in mind, there's no fence, there's no wall, there's no efforts from Middlesbrough to actually hide what they're actually doing. I just find the whole story extraordinary, really. And the idea that might be enough to see a team lose £200 million worth of revenues and not take a place in the Premier League. How do we even get here?
Yeah, my view on it is public property, but they brought the rule in, so they've clearly broken the rule that's in place anyway. I can't believe this is after 46-game season. There's not enough information out there that Southampton, or they're trying to gain. I know there's marginal gains, that they haven't seen what Middlesbrough have been doing. So my thoughts are, they've done it before. They've done it throughout the whole, well, not the whole season, because he hasn't been there the whole season, because he came midway, replaced Will Steele, didn't he? So I think they've been doing it, not all the time, but I think they've done it before. They know exactly what they're doing. He had headphones in, so they've clearly got an idea what they're trying to look for. They clearly know when training sessions are going on. So they've not,
No, but
to me,
come
they've
on.
not done it. They've not done it. This is not the first time they've done it. I'm pretty sure. Why would they do it when they've got this loads of data available for what Middlesbrough, what they're trying to do? It's
I
very
think
murky. All
the
of it. Obviously,
impact that
Southampton are now trying to say we want an internal review because they want to get to the game. The game's actually a week tomorrow on the 23rd, I believe, at Wembley. Well, they haven't announced it yet, so there's a decision on Tuesday, isn't it? Independent things. I can't see how they will chuck them out because it's such a to do that with no real basis of getting all the information that quickly. But they've got it is a big decision because what can you do? Fine them? Well, how much are you going to fine them, kind of thing? And then what? Dot them points? Well, if they go up, then the Premier League is not part of the Premier League's issue, kind of thing. So I don't know really what they're going to do, to be honest with you.
I think they were praying that Middlesbrough won that
Middlesbrough
game.
won.
I don't know. I just feel like the talk of being not going up because of it, relative to the crime committed and the actual benefits you get from that crime, it just doesn't. It just doesn't even begin to. Okay, we're in a situation where Chelsea didn't get any punishment. Okay, I know it's a different jurisdiction in terms of EFL, Premier League. Chelsea went through a situation where they were paying players off the books to circumvent, financial fair play and things like that. Okay, so to gain a sporting advantage, and it's readily accepted that helped them get Hazard instead of him going to, I think, Man United. I think it was at the time. Okay, punishment, nothing on the terms of from a sporting level. That was clinical, calculated over a number of years. That was in terms of the benefits from it. And that actually has tangible effect on the team that they're putting out there and everything that's going on sporting pitch. As you say, these teams know everything. Southampton will have all the video in the world on Middlesbrough. What actual benefit were they getting from this?
And that's we wonder why they're doing it as well.
No, and of course, and and I think one of the problems as well you have a little bit is that when you bring in a foreign coaching team, so I don't know if it's come from the manager who said to the guy, you do it, or whether it's the analyst who's decided, who knows, right? But we saw with Bielsa at the time when he was at Leeds was he had a sort of a general disbelief that this wasn't an accepted practice. For him, it was fairly normal. You try and get whatever advantage you can. Right. So there might well be a situation where in other leagues and other countries, actually, it's not frowned upon in quite the same way it is in England.
I'm just surprised they didn't put a drone up or something like that.
I don't know. I think it's just become a story way, way bigger than what it probably should be.
I mean, it happens. It's happened in rugby union before, and spies and things like that, line-out calls and getting involved in that. So yeah, I mean, but it is a decision that they have to make on Tuesday because they can't. They've got to make some sort of decision on Tuesday, kind of thing.
I just feel sorry for the fans. So,
Or both sets of fans, all three fans, to be honest with you.
well, but
Because Hull yesterday
I mean, particularly
basically have
Hull.
said
Like, so if
they've come out. Yeah. So
there's a
yeah.
good
So
chance if they were to move the date because they're unhappy. You think about all the Hull fans. And it costs. These fans are paying fortunes for, trains, hotels, obviously just tickets, everything, like taking time off work, you name it, to go to that game. They'll be so excited. The sacrifice will be massive for so many of those fans. And you're
well,
honestly telling me a week before that you're going to turn around and say, actually, it's not on that date? Honestly,
the,
what, James? I keep saying, what are we doing here? That's just
the Hull
absolute. That's
fans
just.
have obviously bought train tickets, and if they're staying there overnight, it's because they went through on Monday night against Millwall. So they've had 24 hours, obviously, buy all their train tickets. And don't tell me that they haven't bought all their tickets, the majority of their fans. Yeah, it's a complete mess, and it's a big decision, whatever they've come to. People are going to be annoyed either way, so yeah.
Just talking tickets, one thing that did catch my eye in the week was obviously Villa Forest next Wednesday night. Obviously, the biggest of the European finals this summer. Stadium in Istanbul, 40,000. So Villa get 10,000 tickets. It's pathetic, honestly. In this day and age, for and I know they don't know which clubs are going to get into Europa League finals and things like that. But to have a massive, you shouldn't be getting a big European final if you can only hold 40,000 fans.
Yeah, it should be minimum 50 at least, or 55, whatever you want to be. Yeah, it should be a minimum capacity for European Cup finals. Well, certainly Europa League and certainly the
I mean,
Champions League.
The Conference League is so Mickey Mouse. I mean, you could probably hold that in a League One stadium. I mean,
That's in Leipzig, isn't it? On a couple of weeks' time, 20, whatever it is. Yeah,
okay,
27th.
let's move on to the thing that we want to do slightly differently today. Let's go through each team, James, and we'll start from the bottom, working our way up the league table. And that means Tottenham will come soon. And we'll look at what I think is sort of positions of need ahead of the summer, and then also players who could potentially be on their way for sort of a variety of reasons. So let's take West Ham as a sort of starting point. You know, I think West Ham have quite a few holes to fill, and it's not that surprising when they're a team who are likely to get relegated. Any thoughts in terms of positions of real need that they need to sort out as a team?
Yeah, so we're not doing Wolves and Burnley because they've been relegated. So just an FYI. West Ham, just a couple of players. You got to look like sort of they'll probably need a goal scorer because will they retain Wilson or Castellanos? There's rumours about Jared Bowen wanting to go. He's 29. Although I can see him staying there. Get me? Oh, came there. He's a club captain there now, staying up. Somerville might be one that might decide to leave. He is a Premier League player. He's had a half decent season, more than a half decent season actually. I know he came from Leeds, but you could see a Premier League club coming in for him. I think he's a Premier League player and he's shown that to be a Premier League player. But they need a goal scorer, definitely, for next season, whether in the Championship or they are likely to be in the Championship. They need a proven goal scorer to get out of that league.
Well, I think Castellanos is an interesting one because I think if he stays, he's good enough. I like him quite a lot. And he's obviously not, he only came in January, so that would be an
But he
interesting.
won't stay in the Championship.
Well, you wouldn't think so. I think one thing with West Ham, I would say, I do think they need a new goalkeeper. I'm not sold on Hermanson in the slightest as a top flight goalkeeper. You know, obviously they bought him from Leicester last summer. He got dropped within 3 games, I think it was. In the recent run they've had, he's done okay, but he looks like a mistake waiting to happen constantly. Sort of gives you no confidence whatsoever. And I think if West Ham do stay up, it would be a position where they need to look at. I mean, obviously, the player really of interest from West Ham, I think, at the moment is Fernandes. I think teams will be, couldn't wait to snap him up. He looks brilliant, to be honest. The composure he has on the ball, apart from when it comes to taking his chances against Arsenal.
Yeah,
Um,
agree with that. So move on to Tottenham.
let's go.
Where do we start?
Well,
That Tottenham.
I, I, well,
I'll start with. Go on, you start with Tottenham.
okay. So for this one, I think the position that Tottenham really need to sort out and address, and obviously, I mean, there's two. Obviously, it's goalkeeper, but central midfield. So I think so many of the problems that Tottenham have come from a lack of quality in that central midfield area. So there's one thing when you've got Polinia and Bentancur and Gallagher, Bissouma, Sarr, so they have a few players in there, but the lack of actual quality players in there is amazing. So I think one thing that happened this year that they'll really regret was actually not getting Gibbs White. It looked like it was very close to being done. I think he would have been a good signing for them. I'm still not even sure that's necessary. I think they need multiple bodies in there. Some of your SARS of the world, your Bentancur, Polinias, I'm just not sure they're experienced heads. I'm not sure they're that good.
I think the goalkeeper situation, I think it's tricky, but Kinski's, they need to bin off Vicario. I think he'll leave, go back to Italy. So I think you give him Kinski. I could talk about centre-back because I can see Romero and Van der Ven both leaving as well, kind of thing. the one player that I'm really, really high on is Archie Gray. As I can see him leaving, going back up north. Hopefully, this is from a Liverpool point of view as well, but I can see him leaving because De Zerbi history doesn't play youngsters at all. And he won't want to sit on the bench there and almost ruin a season or have a season lost because he won't play under De Zerbi. They're not in Europe if they stay up, obviously. So he's one, yeah, that I would look at maybe potentially leaving Archie Gray. It'll be cost some money, whoever wants to buy him. You won't get him for less than 40 or 50
I'm
sterling.
I'm definitely just quick on Tottenham. I'm definitely intrigued to see what they can do in terms of turnover of players because I've touched on before that I think the core of that team, is pretty rotten in terms of attitude. Getting rid of your Vicarios, Poros, maybe your Romeros will help, but I'm still not convinced. There's a lot of questionable attitudes in that squad, and I think they actually need to get rid of a few of them. And I think it's easier said than done, given the amount of money they'll want for them. And you even take someone like a Vicario. Yes, he'll probably go back to Italy, but honestly, who's going to be spending? There isn't the money there to spend more than, I don't know, 20 million on him, maybe. At tops, he hasn't shown himself to be that good. Shown himself to be a bit of a liability, to be honest.
Someone like Inter Milan or something like that will buy him.
Nottingham Forest.
Midfielder, they're losing Anderson to Man City and Gibbs White. Gibbs White might stay because I don't see where else he might go in the Premier League, but they'll need a midfielder to replace Anderson.
I could see Gibbs White going elsewhere if he's allowed out of the dungeon.
Well, that new contract surely has a release clause in it that he signed in August or September, whenever it was, after when he didn't want to go to Tottenham. They bought Xavi Simons instead. So yeah, they need a midfielder. You could Morido. I can see some interest, but they'll want big money for him. But I think they need a midfielder to play with Dominguez or Sangari. They'll need one to replace. We're going to get big money for Elliot Anderson, aren't they? They could get £150 million for both of them if they both leave, and they probably do need the money for PSR issues as well. So,
Well, I think
it all depends though what happened. Well, no, because they're out of it anyway. So yeah, they can't get in Europe next season, obviously. So yeah, so they'll need to sell anyway.
Well, I think for Forest, it's pretty important for them to trim their squad a little bit. You look at their squad; it's quite bloated. I think one area I do think they need to sort out is centre forward, because you saw the impact Wood's had when he's come back. Wood isn't a long-term solution in terms of goals. Jesus hasn't shown anything, I don't think, in terms of, he's had a very long run at it. He does some things okay. He is not the answer to, how a Forest going to move up the table next year. So I think they need a striker of some description. That Luca they have on loan, whenever I've seen him, looks bang average. I actually quite like Owoni, but he's had a lot of injury issues this year. Again, is he top level? Not convinced. So I think they need, if they sell some of those midfielders, I think one position they will look for is a striker. Crystal Palace, James. Let's just throw it out there. Wharton is not going to Liverpool. He doesn't want to. He wants to be in Europe going forward in his career.
Well, they need to sort out their manager appointment first of all. That's the biggest issue they've got, obviously. I still can't believe they've not really been. I know they want the noise coming out of the press is Iraola. We've talked about it. Be a very weird move. Yeah, Wharton's obviously leaving. And who else might leave? Could I tempt you in them selling Ismail Sarr? I know he's had an unbelievable season. He is 28. It's the last chance to get decent money for him. Obviously, they could get someone silly could pay. Someone like Newcastle could silly pay 40, 50, 60 million pounds for him. They're good for paying silly money in Newcastle for players like that. He
Well,
might be one to look out for in the summer that he might leave. Ismail Sarr. He's had a great season for them. But barring the obvious, Wharton.
Well, the other one would be Mateta. So Mateta looked like he was gone in January. He was linked to Italy. He was even linked to Villa at one point. He obviously had the knee injury. He's not getting any younger. I think he's only got 1 year left on his contract after the summer. So it might be a final chance for them to cash in on him. I think Sean Larson was bought with a view to replacing him. Again, as you say, really depends on the manager. I just have one hope with Crystal Palace, James, this summer. is that they sign Guessant to a long 5-year deal, let Villa off the hook for a terrible transfer. He is absolutely garbage.
Yeah. Just once, if they do, say they pay 352, they'll need backups for Munoz and Tyreek Mitchell. Because at the right hand side, obviously, you've got Klein, he's just way past his best and not a right wing back. And on the left hand side, they don't really have a proper left back for Tyreek Mitchell, a wing back or a left back. So yeah, they'll need to like if they get in the conference, well, if they win the conference final and then get in Europa League next season, they'll need to get some backup players who are able to take the physical load off those two players.
Well, Sosa's certainly not shown an ability to stay fit for long enough.
Yeah.
Just touching on those two, the two names, Mitchell and Munoz, I do think they would be sort of dark horses at some point to move on. I mean, some of it's formation dependent. So if you do have a team who does play with wing backs, I mean, they're pretty good options, I think, for a better team than, they've been very, very good for Palace.
Yeah.
Leeds, they need a striker, James. They are so short up front. They needed strikers last summer, and they obviously signed Calvert-Lewin on the free. He's done a great job for them, by the way. Obviously got Nemecha, Okafor, Aronson can play up there, Pirro. So they have options, but not many good ones at this level.
Yeah, 100% need a striker. Player to leave. I don't think he will deal, but I think he's very good. I think Ampadu has been brilliant in the last since the turn. He's been good all season. That's not, but in the last 3 to 4 months, that formation change has really helped him, and he's a leader. Absolutely brilliant. He's a leader. He can play centre back. He can play very good defensive midfield. I'm not sure he's top class, but I think he is a very good player. The problem is he'd have to be guaranteed to start somewhere else. But yeah, he's one to keep an eye on. He's really underrated, not by Leeds fans, but by other fans. He's not really talked about, but he's been brilliant recently. He's one to look out for anyway. Well, he's not young. He's 25, I think, isn't he?
The one who I think needs to move at Leeds is Gnonto, right? So he was so highly rated as a slightly younger player, and he's just not getting a chance at Leeds. He needs to play football. There's a footballer in there. I'll be surprised if he doesn't move on, to be honest. He needs to be playing regular football, and it just doesn't look like it's happening under Farke.
Yeah, Daniel James needs to move on. He's not a Premier League footballer.
It's weird, James, that we mentioned Newcastle so quickly when we're working our way from bottom to top. It looks extraordinary, but the noise about Anthony Gordon going to Bayern Munich doesn't seem to be going anywhere. If his transfer goes through, I think it'd be one of the more extraordinary transfers I can remember in a little while.
Is it April Fool's Day?
I mean, we touched on the reasons why it didn't make any sense, and the only way it begin to make any sense is if one of those front three is leaving. If something like an Elise or Diaz or someone like that is leaving Bayern Munich. Otherwise, he doesn't start for them. They should be spending that money on centre-backs or central midfielders.
Yeah, obviously, Nicholas Jackson is currently going back to Chelsea, so they're not taking up that buy option that they've got. So maybe they do just want the extra forward and they're prepared to pay the £70 million they want the extra forward. Yes, he can play across the front three, but his best position's off the left. Maybe they want to take the load off Harry Kane and they want to pay Diaz for it. I don't know. Anyway, they do need another forward, Bayern Munich, because they rely completely on those front three. Gnabry's obviously got a bad injury now as well. But yeah, going back to Newcastle, they've got an awful lot to do. They need to ship out. Like Visa, Watamada are just not good enough for them. Talked about it till we're blue in the face, haven't we? They've got to have to, like with Bruno, Guimaraes and Tonali. So Livramento would have been one, but he's just so injury prone. You look at his injuries in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been quite a lot, but Newcastle have got an awful lot to do. But they need a goal scorer. They
desperately need a striker. I mean, Osula's done okay. If he's your third choice striker, you can live with it. Still young. One thing I'm intrigued by is obviously Tonali and Bruno. So neither getting any younger, and they came to Newcastle for big money. These weren't players who cost 10, 20 million pounds and developed at Newcastle. They came to Newcastle with, what, 60 million pound, that nearer that sort of transfer fee. And I think they were sold a dream about what Newcastle were going to become under the Saudis. And it just hasn't materialized. Almost their peak career, part of their career has been at Newcastle. I'm not saying it's been wasted, but with them not having Europe again next year, I think it does come very quickly a situation where I could see both turning around and saying, yeah, and what they'll be really conscious of is they won't want to kick up a fuss because, the fans have shown they'll get quite nasty to you if you do kick up a fuss, and they won't want to ruin their legacies. But I'd be surprised if either of them wants to stay at Newcastle for another year under Howe.
Yeah, as I say, they've got a big summer in Newcastle. I agree with both. They're two good players, but yeah, last chance for a big move.
Sunderland, obviously they brought in a lot of players last summer, in terms of volume of players, brought in some good players as well. It wasn't just a case of lots of players. A lot of their players have done pretty well as well. Any big thought? So one player who does look like he's leaving will be Geertruida. It looks like he'll be back. He's on loan at the moment, so it looks like he'll be leaving. His versatility will be missed, I think. There is a useful Premier League player in there. Any thoughts on Sunderland, James?
Again, it's midfielders, like kind of thing, because I can see interest in from other teams of Enzo Lafay and Siddiqui. Siddiqui's had a great season. Xhaka's not getting any younger, obviously, whatever, he's 33, 34 now, isn't he? So they'll need to get they've still got Luke O'Nien playing at centre-back kind of thing in time. So I know they bought a lot of players. They bought a lot of first-team starters during the summer. That's why their season's been remarkable. I know it's tailing off now, but yeah, they need to fill out their squad kind of thing. Midfield would be the one I'm looking at.
I think for them, I'd look at centre back. He can't be starting the likes of Ballard, I don't think, at this level. He's fine. He's not a top half Premier League defender, I don't think. And as you said, a 9 is like third or fourth choice. And what we've ended up a little bit with Sunderland is they have these versatile players like Mukiele who will flip between right back and centre back, and I just think they need to get a top quality centre back in there who they can sort of actually rely on. Alderetti's not too bad, but I think it's an area that can certainly be strengthened. One player I could see leaving, by the way, or might be of interest, would be Roofs in goal. He did start very well. His form has dipped a little bit since, but there's not many good goalkeepers out there, and I think he's still relatively young. I think he has interesting upside, and a year in the Premier League is a big bonus for him in terms of relative to signing a young keeper from a foreign league. You know what you're going to get with him.
And funny, actually, the club that's nearest to them, we just talked about Newcastle needing a new goalkeeper as well, because Pope and Ramsdale are just garbage. But that would never happen anyway, but yeah.
Fulham, looks like Harry Wilson will be off on a free transfer this summer. There's a few clubs linked with him, one being Villa, but I think if you sign him on a free transfer, it is what it is. He'll be on decent wages, won't be crazy wages. I think, a squad player who can do something. I don't think he's going to be a starter for a lot of teams. The bigger teams anyway. Obviously you saw Fulham last week. Any particular thoughts?
They've kind of replaced Harry Wilson with Oscar Bob, haven't they? So they spent a lot of money in him in January. So yeah, Harry Wilson, I don't think was funny. He hasn't got that extra yard of pace. Fulham's his level. You get him on a free, whatever. He'll go. Midfield, they're still playing Tom Kearney. They've got Harrison Reed still hanging around. They go back to it. They still know Sander Berge is a decent Premier League midfielder kind of thing. But, Smith Rowe, he's just not developed at all since they spent 30 million quid from Arsenal all those years ago on him. But again, they can't really do anything at the moment because, well, Fulham generally don't do anything till right at the last minute anyway. But Marco Silva, does he stay or does he go? But yeah, a midfielder for me would be one. I thought about Iwobi, but I like Iwobi kind of thing. I do, because he can play different positions, but I think he's settled there now kind of thing. I wouldn't, take a lot of money for a club to go out and get him out of there. But yeah, Iwobi's one to keep. No, I wouldn't say keep an eye on, but you could see him, maybe European Cup come in for him kind of thing. He is a good player.
I think the one I'd want out of Fulham is Josh King. I do think
Yeah,
there's
the
a
youngster,
decent
yeah.
youngster in there. And he's
Yeah.
unfortunate in that there's one area Fulham do actually have a lot of depth, as you say, is in those. It's not the central midfield areas, it's those more attacking midfield areas, the wide areas. And they've actually got some other interesting players in Kevin Chukwueze. I quite like Chukwueze. I think it's a proper footballer in there. As you say, they signed Oscar Bob. They've got Smith Rowe. They have obviously Wilson as well at the moment. So King's chances have been somewhat limited. I think it'd be very difficult to get him out of there, but I think he would be a pretty interesting player, I think, elsewhere.
If Marco Silva left last time at Fulham, would Glasner be interested for them?
I could see Glasner going back abroad.
Yeah.
I don't know who. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know who Fulham would look for. Everton. So, um, I mean, the one player you want from Everton would be Ndiaye, but or even Branthwaite. I mean, Branthwaite can't stay fit. If he could stay fit, I mean, there's a proper centre back in there. And Ndiaye is a very, very good player. Although he's been very wasteful whenever I've seen him recently. But he does create all sorts.
Yeah, they kind of need a winger. I mean, he plays off the left, but they need a right wing because Dibbling really hasn't. Whether he hasn't settled on Merseyside, I'm not sure. But they spent an awful lot of money for him. They spent £40 million for him in Southampton in the summer. So I don't think he'll definitely. I can't see him staying there again. So they either go out on loan or they'll sell him, try and get as much money back. Probably loan him out, but they need some wide forwards. Beto and Barry have done decent jobs for him, kind of thing. They're definitely worth persevering. I like James Garner, so he'll probably stay.
Question for you: does Grealish come back to Everton?
He'll have to take a huge pay cut because Man City aren't going to. Is he out of contract to Man City this summer? Got
Not
one
yet, I
more
don't
year
think.
left. So they have to pay him. Could Everton are paying him 100 grand and he's Man City paying him 200 grand or something like that, isn't it? Maybe for 100 grand, you pay him for 100 grand. He's 30 though. His body might be 35 kind of thing because all the damage does when he goes out on the beers and things like that kind of thing. He's been injured for a while now as well. I think
He was
if you're
electric.
Everton, it's a lot.
He was very
It's a
good for
lot of
them.
money kind of thing.
Yeah, but for Premier League teams, 100 grand isn't that much now. And the average wage is from like 80,000-90,000 pounds a week. It's crazy. Problem for
Yeah.
Grealish is you're not getting him for 100 grand. By the way,
No, City are going to have to pay for him to get him off their wages. Yeah.
one position I do think Everton need just quickly is right back. And just fullbacks generally. I think top flight. I know they're like Jacob Ryan in terms of set pieces and things like that, but him and Mikalenko, they're not top quality fullbacks. Certainly an area where I think they can improve.
Yeah. Especially right back. They don't really want to use Garner there, although he has been decent there kind of thing. But Garner's improved a lot in the last 18 months. He's been actually sneakily good. I know he's got into the England squad during the season as well.
Chelsea. Can I just say straight away, Chelsea? Goalkeeper. It's the same last summer. They need a goalkeeper, James. And I don't quite know how we're in a situation where we're still talking about the same issue almost 2 years down the line. I know they think Penders is good, the young lad, but they need a goalkeeper.
Problem is, there's not many good goalkeepers out there at the moment, is there? So, but yeah, I mean,
Goalkeeper, not called Robert Sanchez.
they need a centre back with experience as well. they need a lot of it. They need to buy some experienced players. We talked about it, didn't we? In terms of, I mean, I don't even know where to start with that Chelsea side because
Well, they get
they've got,
Colwell's back now, which is a bonus.
yeah, they need some experience next to him though. I don't know who you need to get. Like, you can't be having Levi Colwell and say a Tosin or a Shadowbird, things like that kind of thing. You need some experience in that team. And Reece James, I mean, just injury prone is ridiculous. Yeah, goalkeeper or centre back for me. A dominant centre back would be the one.
Well, the other,
Uh,
so I guess the other one would be depth in those striker areas because Delap clearly isn't the answer. So what you end up with is you end up having to play Pedro further forward. And don't get me wrong, he's done a great job. But when Pedro isn't there, they look desperately short up front.
yeah, but they've got, I mean, don't know if Chelsea got no manager at the moment. Obviously, the very strong rumours about Xavi Alonso. They met apparently on Monday or Tuesday, met his representatives. So, do they pay 352? I mean, does he keep hold of Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Palmer?
Do you know what Real Madrid need? They need Enzo Fernandez to go in there with his attitude. I think he would just be the answer to all their problems.
Can you imagine him under Jose Mourinho? Crumbs almighty.
Okay, let's talk Brentford. Keith Andrews done an amazing job. One of the big things for them is keeping Thiago, having got him fit after he missed the previous year pretty much with injury. He's scored a lot of goals. I still think at times he looks a complete donkey, but he keeps churning out the goals. I think the one player I think will become under scrutiny is Coyote, and he's still quite young. And as a right back, I think at times he looks pretty good, and at other times I think, "Ugh." But let's talk about that long throw. And whilst the Premier League puts an emphasis on set pieces and long throws, he's as good as anyone almost probably in world football in terms of that long throw. It is almost like a corner. It's so flat, hard, and I feel like a team will pay for it. You talk about marginal gains and things like that. Is if you have that as a weapon, and particularly if you're at one of the better teams where you're going to get a lot of throw-in deep in, an opposition half. So not just say corners, for example, but if you're going to get a lot of throw-ins, I mean, it's a license to just cause chaos.
I know Liverpool have been looking at him this for the last year, 18 months kind of thing. Another one is Kevin Schade, the winger, the forward as well. There's noise about him as well. But yeah, they're looking like they're going to be in Europe next season as well. So they'll need some depth around. They've got some depth at centre back as well, like this, but they'll need some depth kind of thing. And as I say, a backup to Thiago. Going back to Kawada, he's young though. You're going to have ups and downs of players, aren't you? So you can't always be playing well. He's, first.
Come on, James. You know who's rubbing his hands, looking enviously at him. Got to be Arteta. Fill in that right back slot whilst Ben White not just injured. I mean, he's been bang average for a while. Could you think of a more suitable player for Arteta than Coyote? I mean,
They've got Julian Timber there and Mosquera. He's
I-
not centre back. So
oh yes, sorry. Okay, we have to rule Coyote out. We have to play with 4 centre backs at the back. Sorry. Brighton. This is always an interesting one, Brighton, because their recruitment over the years has been fantastic. I think the obvious player who stands out is Belabor. He was being linked with teams like United for 70-80 million pounds in January. And so John, who's sometimes a guest of the pod, he pointed something out to me very early on in the season, and that was just how rarely Belieber actually finished games. How often he'd only actually play 65, 70 minutes. And you do wonder about him. Obviously he's fallen off the cliff a little bit as well. When you have Milner starting ahead of you, question marks have to be asked. But it does. Maybe it's because his head's turned. Maybe he will end up at United or somewhere like that. Obviously, the fee won't be what I think Brighton were hoping for at one stage, but I suspect Brighton, even if they got, say, 60 million for him, I think that they might go, okay.
And as you made a very good point a couple of weeks ago, maybe longer, Pascal Grosser got back from Dortmund for experience at midfield to help out. And he's starting with Belieber now, but yeah, he is definitely one. Obviously, there's been a bit of noise about John Paul Van Hecker, the centre back. He's great on the ball. He's an ordinary centre back, defending wise, kind of thing, but he looks good because he can pass the ball. I know you don't rate Verbruggen, but he's going to stay there, kind of thing. But you talk about their transfer. Who they buy up front is interesting. They've bought an awful lot of money on those couple of those young lads as well, who've just not
The
done
Greek lads.
anything, kind of thing. Yeah, not done anything. And they're still paying 35-year-old Danny Welbeck, kind of thing. So they have got a few holes in that squad. But again, you trust Tony Bloom and Star Lizard to the nth degree. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Matt O'Reilly, because he's come back on from his loan at Marseille, kind of thing. So what happens to him? Because he's a good player. Ferguson, went to Roma, didn't he? Scored a couple of goals, and now he's got his ankle injury again. So what happens to him? So yeah,
I think what we're seeing with Brighton, a good example of sell high, honestly, is
yeah,
if you
they
get an
don't care
offer in
about.
for these players,
See you
70,
later.
80 million, so believe it, bye bye. The money being talked about for Ferguson at one point was in that sort of region. Matoma, I think Matoma's a brilliant player. He can't stay
Oh,
fit at the moment. Got another injury, so I think he's out for the season. Um, but the amount of money that was being talked about for him, honestly, you could do a lot worse than just, when you get offered the 60, 70, 80 million for these players, bye bye. Thanks very much. And I think it's probably a pretty good lesson to most teams. Bournemouth. So one player does look like he's leaving. So obviously Bournemouth's going to be interesting in terms of new manager. One player who looks like he's off, and if they stay in the Premier League, we're told that he will be Tottenham bound, is Marco Senesi. I watched the game against Crystal Palace a couple of weeks ago. I saw that pathetic dive that got the penalty, and I thought, he'll fit in well at Tottenham. Just the sort of character you need.
just an odd transfer. I watched a bit of him briefly because I was at the game last week. He's too small for a Premier League. He's 6 foot kind of thing. He's maybe very good in a three, but actually in a two-man high line, I would worry about him.
So I've got very simple, and I apply it to Van Hecker at Brighton as well. Right? They're very good on the ball. Right? They are They are not good defenders, and it's such a difficult balance to get between ball playing centre backs and if you do get a good one, they are very valuable, but you also have a job to do as a centre back, and you can't be getting exposed. Van Hecke, for example, he's a bang average defender, and the same applies to Senesi. Tottenham are going to spend big money on Senesi, and what I'm assuming he's going to come in to replace one of Van der Ven or Romero who will leave. You know, I don't know.
They get him on free anyway. He's out of contract, but a huge signing on bonus, obviously. Yeah,
I think Bournemouth are really tricky with, in terms of we don't know what sort of formation they're going to play under new manager. I mean, obviously the youngster they have who is highly regarded and he does look very interesting. It's not Ray and James. He's obviously very good, but it's Krupi. He has an eye for goal, and you touched on it earlier. You look around, there aren't that many qualities, players who can score goals.
yeah, him and Alex Scott as well.
Aston Villa. Now we're talking, James. The one player who there's a very high chance he leaves this summer is Morgan Rogers, and I could see him going to like a Chelsea or somewhere like that. I could see Chelsea somehow trying to work out the finances to spend £100 million or £80 million on him, and I think his head has almost been turned. I think he loves the idea of playing for one of the big boys, and if he leaves, he leaves. I certainly wouldn't be that devastated if he does.
Emi Martinez.
I really hope not. I mean, he could do. He came incredibly close to leaving last summer. I thought at one point he was gone, and you see his importance to Villa this year. His importance to Villa over the last 4 years or so. He can't be replaced, I don't think. Um, as you touched on, there aren't that many good goalkeepers out there. I mean, if you had to pick one goalkeeper to replace him, you'd probably have to hope that someone like Trafford, who, by the way, is going to be in serious demand this summer, is able to sort of make the leap from being a promising keeper to being top class.
Yeah, still seeing you need to strengthen your fullback areas as well.
So when we sort of came up with this exercise, the position where I thought we need to strengthen, I can't, Matty Cash at right back, he's actually had a pretty decent season by his standards. If you want to push on and get to the next level, I don't think having Cash and Digne as your fullbacks is how you get there.
Yeah,
By the way, I can't wait. So, do you see this? The transfer Milan to Roma has been confirmed, given they've got European qualification. He's done a ridiculous end of season for Roma in terms of how many goals he scored. And I think what it shows you is one of the problems you have when you put these clauses in on players who, the buyout. So they had a buy clause in there for about 25 million. If it was on the open market, he'd be worth more than that at the moment based on what he's done. It's very tricky trying to negotiate these deals, particularly mid-season. I only have one hope for Villa, and that is that Leon Bailey disappears. I've done with his attitude. Liverpool, James, you spent £450 million last summer. You don't need, 500 was it? I can't remember, 600. I mean, it was something crazy. Looking ready to buy the league again. You surely don't need more players, do you?
spent less than Arsenal, but let's not get facts in the way of anything these days. Thank you. Where do we start? I mean, I could go on. Need a new right back urgently.
No, it's fun to watch four different players try and. By the way, just quickly on right back, Frimpong, talk me through that, James. As
It's
signing
almost
as a
like they
right
bought
back.
in. Yeah, he was never a right back. So I had no idea how to play him, what to play him anyway. Yeah, they need a new right back. If I was going to come, they need a new right back and they need a central midfielder, defensive midfielder, not Adam Wharton. They probably need. I mean, there's been rumours, haven't they, about Kamara at Lens, Sangare at Lille, I think he is, Sangare. They need a holding midfield as well. They need a right back and they need a winger. So they need a lot. They need a new
Allison,
manager or head coach as well.
it looks like Allison, good chance Allison leaves, I think, to Juve. I think it feels about right. I think, and obviously he can't stay fit, but I still think it's a big loss.
Yeah, huge loss, but he can't stay fit. He's been out for 2 months again now this season. His kicking's gone downhill. He doesn't trust his hamstrings. He's been at the club 9 years, whatever it is, 7 years, I think, 7 or 8 years, kind of thing, whatever it is. Thank you very much. Take 10, 15 million euros and say, thank you, get off the wage bill, 200 grand a week, 250 grand a week, whatever he's on. That's probably why they bought Mamardashvili last summer, kind of thing, or summer before, even 2 years ago now. Players to leave. Obviously, there's been big rumours about Curtis Jones. I can see Curtis Jones leaving because PSR issues. He's homegrown and you can get decent money for him. So
So
he'd be one
the
to look out
homegrown
for.
stuff doesn't matter now in the same way it did.
Yeah, I know, but it's still for him. He wants to go and play first team football, and quite rightly, kind of thing. And if for whatever reason Arne Slot does stay, he's not going to stay at Liverpool. So
Maybe you can find a place for Harvey Elliott somewhere, James.
yeah, what for Leipzig? He's not playing for Liverpool again. I mean, the nonsense about Harvey Elliott. I talked about it on and off this pod. He's just not good enough.
Let's talk Manchester United. I think one interesting story I saw this week was there was some chat about Umbermo. Maybe not happy with life under Carrick, potentially. I think that'd be a surprise given how we don't know Carrick's going to stay there, but um, he's only obviously been there a year. He's done pretty well when he has played. But I guess that's one of the problems you have is when you do have a manager like Carrick and you have these new signings from last summer. He clearly fancies some of the players, doesn't fancy others. And if you're in Burmo, you're at a stage of your career where you're going to walk into a lot of teams and you want to be playing.
Yeah, I thought that was an odd. It came from absolutely nowhere. That rumor came out on Mbemo.
Which is why it makes me think either it's agent talk or there might. It was so random that it makes you think there might be something in it.
Yeah, it just comes from nowhere. So it's got to be yeah, weird rumor to make up as well. If you just want to make up kind of thing. Quickly on United, they need pace on the left hand side, the left wing. If they Michael Carrick looks like he's getting a job, which is hilarious, but different time for different pod. They can't play. They talked about in a week playing Dorgu as a left winger and Cunha as a left winger, two left wingers. I mean, please, no. Cunha's not a left winger in any stretch of imagination, and Dorgu's a left wing back. So if I was Man United are looking for pace, they obviously massively need to replace Casemiro because Ugarte's bang average and Bruno's a year older. And there's still rumours about him.
I think they need two central midfielders, don't they?
They
I
need
don't.
a lot, Man United. They do need a lot. They've
One
spent an awful lot and they do need a lot.
one player, James Mason Mount. At what point does he move to a new club?
What, on his crutches or how much money are you going to get from Mason Mount these days?
Well, I mean, obviously, Man United is one of the worst transfers going when they spent £50 million on a player who was out of contract the year after. I think he was.
On 250 grand a week. Yeah.
Well, if you're Mount, at some point you have to go, which is not happening at United. Teams take a chance on him.
Brave teams take a chance on an injury prone player at the age of 27, 28. Yeah.
But the fee would be, if you were someone like, I don't know, Sunderland or someone, if you could get someone like Mount out of United, for a reasonable amount, I, I think there is a footballer in there.
Crystal Palace, if he wants to come back down south, maybe.
But yeah, so United definitely need central midfielders. I think they need a centre back as well, and their fullbacks aren't brilliant either. um, Manchester City, do they need anyone, James? They seem to spend £400 million every transfer window.
So I was thinking about this. They just can, I talked about it before. Last January, they bought Aussie Mamouche, Rice, the centre back, never plays, Kusinov, and then they realised they weren't good enough, so they went and bought Gay and Semenya in January. I mean, they're also going to buy, it looks like they're buying Eddie Anderson to replace Bernardo Silva and as a future replacement for Rodri kind of thing. I still think they'll buy another centre midfielder because I don't think they rate Reinders at all. And I don't think Nico Gonzalez is anyway good enough anyway. So I do think they'll buy another midfielder, because Reinders and Nico Gonzalez can't play. So yeah, I'll be looking at them as a centre midfielder kind of thing. Maybe a right back as well, because I know Mateus Nunes has done a half decent job there, but he's not a right back. They're pretty stacked on the left hand side with Nuri and Nico Riley. Maybe they move Nico Riley centre midfield and play him with Eddie Anderson, but fullback would be a right-sided fullback would be the one I'd looked at. But then depends on Guardiola. But Guardiola's shown that he can't buy fullbacks, kind of thing.
Well, I guess
In
it
his,
really depends if Guardiola's there or not. Would be the. I mean,
it's
Nunes
just
is.
Maresca would go. Maresca looks like he would go there, kind of thing.
So one
They'd
player
probably
who
be
will
interested in
leave.
like a Pedro Porro, by the way.
So one player who will. Yeah, I mean, Porro could do it. Almost reminds me of Cancelo when he was there. But
Yeah,
one player who will leave is Trafford, and he's going to. I feel so sorry for Trafford being sold the Man City dream for them to then sign Donnarumma. I don't think I can remember a player getting more screwed over than what they've done with Trafford, really. I'm sure he'd been paid appropriately, and he has played lots of cup games, and I think there's a good chance he'll start in the FA Cup final, actually. But it's tough to take. I think he will be off, and I think you will see a whole collection of teams interested in him, whether it be your Newcastles. If Martinez left Villa would be interested in him. I think Tottenham potentially could be interested in someone like him if I don't think Kinski's the answer. And I think Trafford's going to have some pretty good options, I think, available to him.
absolutely. The thing with Trafford, though, if you're looking, I'm not going to Tottenham. They're not playing Champions League football, Europa League football. Why are you going to Newcastle? I mean, yeah, it is a big club, but you got to still worry about the Saudi investment and things like that, and a manager who's going to be there, which players are going to be there, and you've seen what's happened last the transfer window there. That's why I talked about Emi Martinez. If Villa could get 20, 30 million pound for him from somewhere, you send him to Saudi or even Turkey or I don't know, wherever you want to, spend their money on Trafford. Yeah, okay, you lose for a year and his distribution's been unbelievable, Martinez, all season kind of thing. But you've got to look at the future, you know, and he could be a goalkeeper for 10 years kind of thing. So, yeah, I just think if Trafford, I want to go and play European football next season. And there's not really, I mean, Chelsea could do a lot worse.
I still maintain Chelsea should have signed Martinez last summer. They could have got
But
him. They
yeah,
could have got him for not huge amounts, and
now it's probably going to cost them more to sign him this year
he
if they want him.
he,
Yeah.
he would have done an amazing job for them. I think in terms of attitude, and nothing else. A couple of players at City, Marmoush. I don't know how long he was going to hang around. Just not playing enough. Too good to be not playing. And the other one is Savinho. And Savinho was linked with Tottenham last summer quite heavily, and they sort of rejected those advances. I just wonder if they may look to ship one or two of those off.
Yeah. He scored his second goal, didn't he, in 50 games on Wednesday night, wasn't it? So, yeah.
And then Arsenal spent all the money in the world. What more do they need, James? They have the deepest squad we've ever seen in Premier League history, according to some, about 6 months ago. Okay, question for you with Arsenal. Are they brave enough to go and sign a proper striker?
They need to sell by all accounts. No, they won't. I think they'll keep hold of Gyökeres now. They won't. I mean, it's a massive hit if they get rid of him. Who's going to buy him anyway for any sort of money? They need to sell. So if they're looking to sell a player, it'd be Martinelli for me to get rid of him. That's why I'm quite surprised they're not interested in buying Anthony Gordon kind of thing. Not that I rate him highly, but he'll do you a fantastic job there, pace and holding width. They'll probably buy another centre back because they always want to buy centre backs.
So,
They've also got to buy Hincapié, so they've got to spend 35, 40 million pound on him. So they are going to have to sell Arsenal. They're going to have
right,
to sell a couple of first team players this summer.
let's take Martinelli. I mean, he was obviously linked with Saudi for a while at crazy numbers, like 60, 70, 80 million pounds. Did I miss something where Martinelli justifies that sort of price tag based on what we've seen, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when, he was a very interesting youngster, and obviously Arteta's got his hands on him and he's made him less interesting. And I just don't understand those sort of price tags, like even 60 million for Martinelli. What has he done to possibly justify that type of price tag?
Nothing is the answer to that. I just hope we get a chance to see him at Anfield after his despicable incident with Conor Bradley in the league game. I hope he doesn't. Hope we get to see him in the first couple of games of the season. We'll give them a nice round of applause for being champions. But yeah, left wing for Arsenal, definitely.
I think central midfield for Arsenal. I think we've seen actually in the last couple of weeks that Zubimendi isn't necessarily the answer for what Arsenal need in terms of getting to the next level, like in terms of improving their open play football, should we say? I think Zubimendi started the season off great. I think he's regressed quite badly, almost. And I think, a proper ball playing midfielder in there alongside Rice would be of big benefit to them.
I think a lot of that though is he's never played Champions League football, never gone this deep for Sociedad in his career kind of thing. He's never had this much pressure. He's never played, come into a league that's fast, quick, physical. He's just tailed off because he's probably, body's not used to it, knackered. He's a good player. It'd be very interesting, last thing on Arsenal before we move on to this week's games, who they play in the Champions League final, who they play in midfield. Is it Rice and Lewis Skelly, or does he go back to Rice and Zubimendi? Be interesting to see.
Ah,
Has he got any balls, Arteta?
I was going to say, I was going to use a different word. And I remember it's live. Okay, so I think it's going to be an interesting summer. So it's just a brief look. It's taken a little while, but also just a look at some of the Premier League teams and what the summer looks like. Lots of big decisions, lots of holes to be filled. I don't know how many transfers that there'll be. As I say, I don't know how much money there is actually out there. How many teams have got big money to spend? I think it's going to be interesting to see, and it's something we'll touch on throughout the summer. Let's have a look at this weekend's games. Obviously, week. Let's start FA Cup final tomorrow. Chelsea versus Man City. The FA Cup final isn't what it was. That's all I can really say, really. It used to be such a pinnacle when we were growing up as one of the best sporting days of the year. The build up from early on, everything about it was just, it was almost magical. And it's just not that anymore.
Yeah, it used to be the last game of the season as well. Everyone looking forward to it, kind of thing. You have to build up on BBC at 9 o'clock in the morning and seeing the team bus coming out the hotel from Watford Way, etc., etc. The Liverpool cream suits, the Spice Boys, etc., all that nonsense kind of thing. Just a couple of things on Chelsea. So they've lost. They're the only team that have lost their last three FA Cup finals. They lost to Liverpool 2022 on penalties. Great Scouser Costa Simicas scored the winning penalty. Then they previously in 2021 they lost to Leicester 1-0. Leicester. And then they lost to Arsenal in the COVID FA Cup final. Arteta's only trophy kind of thing. Get it in there for Arsenal fans. So yeah, they've got things like that. And it's, as John said, I think it's the last 10 years, it's always been a Man City or a Chelsea team have been in the final. So yeah, I just don't know. I think Man City are playing well enough at the moment to beat them. Not comfortably, but the Chelsea have been bang average for months now, kind of thing. Yeah, they were okay against Liverpool last weekend, but Liverpool made it easy for them, kind of thing. Still like the look of Caicedo up against, I mean, is Rodri back fit for Man City tomorrow? I'm not sure. I haven't seen any team news from
I
Guardiola this
think,
morning.
I think he will be fit. I mean, he's back in
That's
training.
massive for them.
I think he'll be fit, and they've obviously rested loads of players midweek. I think they should be fit. I mean, yeah, Chelsea are not very good. If I wasn't worried about Chelsea players suddenly remembering it's a cup final and stepping up about 5 levels on what they've shown in the previous, 5 games, I'd actually think City are a pretty good price tomorrow. Only thing that make you a little bit nervous is that actually the players Chelsea have turn up and completely different players to what we've seen recently, because the players we've seen recently are bang average.
Yeah, and João Pedro has got a very good ability. I know he's a 9.5. He's not really a 9 or a 10 kind of thing. To hold the ball up and make centre backs look ordinary. He's done it before against Saliba and Gabriel. He can do it against Kusanov and Mark Gay, I think, will start tomorrow. I saw that Guardiola played, didn't he? Played 60 minutes, but I can't imagine him playing starting tomorrow. So yeah, João Pedro can score goals as well. So Robert Sanchez back in goals. He's better than Jorgensen, but anyone's better than Jorgensen kind of thing. So you expect Man City to win that kind of thing. Just hope that Darren England doesn't seem it's all about him. He's a referee tomorrow. It's not about you. It's about the 22 players on the pitch.
I think that one of the big things about tomorrow is that for Chelsea is if they don't win, is it's going to be a Europe-free season and all the various consequences to that. Could be big for Chelsea. Obviously, we have a game tonight: Liverpool, Aston Villa, or Aston Villa, Liverpool at Villa Park. Obviously, both teams are trying to finish in the top 5 for those Champions League spots. It's been that way for a little while now. This game is one of these games that on paper it looks, it should be an interesting game, but the reality is that Villa have an eye on next Wednesday. Liverpool just playing terribly. I honestly don't know. I spent an awful lot of time last night looking at it. I have no idea which way Emery's going to go with his team selection. The market suggests it will be a relatively strong Villa lineup. I just do not want to see the likes of Tyrone Mings in that lineup. And I just wonder as well if Villa come out very flat, almost Tottenham-esque, like they did a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. I think it's a really tricky game to know what will happen. a draw actually would suit both teams. A draw would mean that Bournemouth have to beat Manchester City for one of these two teams not to make it into Champions League.
Yeah, I think I said to you last night, a draw would be, if you asked Emery and Slot now, you'd happily snap a draw kind of thing and walk off. No injuries, especially for Villa kind of thing. Liverpool would be delighted, not losing another game. I mean, I can't
So
even bear
just just
myself
just quickly on
watching
this
the game.
just quickly on this game, the prices are interested because before Villa played Burnley, Liverpool were 1.9 in this game. And I think there was an assumption there that if Villa had beaten Burnley, that Villa would be resting a lot of players for this game, and it would almost been a second string team. Liverpool are now out to 2.54 as we record this. Who knows where that price will go, but it's just rare that you see a price move quite so much.
Yeah, and you don't know what Liverpool team are going to turn up, kind of thing. But they haven't beaten a top 10 side away from home. Well, they have, sorry, they beat Everton who are 10th in the last minute. They haven't actually, and they've played garbage in the last 3 weeks, Liverpool. So, yeah, everyone knows my thoughts on Liverpool. It's, do I watch that or do I watch Northampton rugby tonight is a decision to be made.
So no Premier League on Saturday because of the FA Cup. We've got 6 Premier League games on Sunday instead. I mean, we have to start with it. It's the game of the day, Newcastle, West Ham. We will all be sat there with our West Ham hats on, hoping that they can get a result at West Ham, at Newcastle even. And, I said before, I'll say it again, this West Ham team, there's something about them at the moment and in recent weeks. Even when they've not got the results they want, they've actually played okay. So whether it be against Arsenal, you know, whether it be the loss they had to Brentford, they played pretty well that day. They had the loss against Liverpool where they lost 5-2 at Anfield. They were unlucky that day. They had the Chelsea result at Stamford Bridge where they were 2-0 up and lost 3-2. Every single time recently they're competitive, and I think that's all you can really ask from a team. Newcastle, I assume Gordon won't be starting. They look a lot better with Bruno. It was a big result against Brighton last week. But one of the things about that game was they were gifted the early goals from that Verbruggen mistake, then a set-piece goal from Dan Burn. You're 2-0 up. It changes games. I always say it, goals change games. And we didn't really get to see Newcastle under pressure. But all I can say is, West Ham, please take your chances. Make it go into the final day of the season.
That's all we want as neutrals is both top end of the table, Arsenal and Man City, last game of the season, and West Ham, Tottenham, last game of the season. Look, I don't know what mindset Newcastle are going to be in. Their fans obviously want the performance of the last home game of the season. However, their season's been a massive disappointment for them. They've not got nothing to play for, Newcastle. They're only playing to get up and get a couple more extra million quid for prize money where you are in the Premier League. I can easily see Newcastle just being completely off it. And I've seen it time and time again that when they're off it, these teams, and like West Ham got something to play for, that they'll go up there. And as you say, fine margins, hopefully take your chances. They scored a first goal, confidence going through there. It'd be interesting to see what formation Nuno plays. Did he keep his 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 that he played against Arsenal, or did he go back to his 4-2-3-1? No, West Ham, as you say, they've got some good players like Bowen and Somerville and Castellanos and things like that. Wilson, who had a great finish at the weekend. It really was. So he probably can't last 90 minutes. That's why he's probably on the bench. And they bought the other lad, and there's rumours about why they bought him in January as well. But yeah, that'll be the game to watch on Sunday afternoon. Come on, West Ham.
What I would say is there's a ton of really, really average games that don't mean much. Like Wolves, yes, I know some of these teams can maybe make it into the 6th, 7th, 8th places, but things like Wolves, Fulham, obviously Brentford, Palace, Brentford, obviously trying to get into Europe, but it's still not an overly exciting game. Everton, Sunderland, 2 mid-table teams. Leeds, Brighton. Obviously, Brighton are trying to get into Champions League places, but Leeds have got nothing to play for. I guess the other interesting one would be Man United, Forest. But again, this is a game that looked a lot more interesting a couple of weeks ago. It looked like there'd be much more jeopardy on this. United have finished in Champions League spots, and Forest, they're safe. There's not There's not much more to say, really.
It's a very poor set of fixtures, isn't it? Till next week when you got the Monday night going Arsenal. So yeah, but this weekend is literally all about Newcastle, West Ham on Sunday. There's nothing else really, as you say. There's not really a game on Sunday you're going, I want to watch. There's not really any jeopardy on those games because only 4 teams really got jeopardy.
Yeah, I think you got Brighton and Bournemouth trying to get that final Champions League place. So, and if they don't make the fifth, then obviously sixth has. So that's where the Villa Liverpool game tonight is actually quite interesting. So, if you're a neutral observer or neutral, I'd say if you're a team who's trying to finish in the top 6 or top 5, so Brighton, Bournemouth, any of these teams, you want Liverpool to beat Villa tonight because that would increase the chance of Villa finishing fifth and potentially that Champions League spot going down to sixth. If Villa beat Liverpool tonight, then makes it that much less likely that Villa finish fifth in the league.
Yes and no, because you're playing Man City away in the last game of the season, aren't you? And Liverpool at home to Brentford, so it could go down in goal difference who finishes fourth and fifth between Liverpool and Villa kind of thing. But yeah, I get what you mean.
I mean, look,
Uh,
Villa would need a point at Man City. I mean, it depends if Man City are playing for the title or not. If they don't get a result against Bournemouth,
yeah, so
then
it will change. Yeah, absolutely. But as a neutral, you kind
I
of
think
want it.
as a
Yeah.
neutral, your best chance of Villa finishing fifth is Liverpool winning tonight.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and then we have Arsenal Burnley on Monday. We'll talk about that on Monday, and obviously the other big event is obviously Celtic Park, Celtic Hearts. Celtic have to win the title.
Yeah, 12:30 UK time tomorrow. It's massive game there at Celtic Park. So yeah, and as a neutral, first we all want Hearts to get some sort of result or any result. Obviously, just a draw will do for them, kind of thing. I see Celtic are very short in the betting kind of thing, but Celtic's keeper is garbage. Really is garbage. But I did like going back to that. I did like the Hearts reaction to the players. They were like, "Yeah, we're here. We're top of the table. We have no fear going to Celtic Park tomorrow," kind of thing on Saturday. So yeah, it'll be great. 12:30. I mean, some atmosphere, that kind of thing there tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, come on Hearts. I think it'll be their first title in 60 years and the first non-old firm winners of the Scottish Premiership in 40 odd years since Ferguson in 85. So 41 years since Sir Alex Ferguson. Aberdeen won there. So Aberdeen won the title. So yeah, monumentous day in Scotland tomorrow. And as a non-Celtic Rangers fan, yeah, come on
Let's hope
Hearts.
it's not decided by a VAR decision, James.
Can you imagine?
It's just let's just have. Can we just have a weekend with no VAR issues? I mean, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Well, we did have quite a long wait, didn't we? We had quite a long stretch of no contentious decisions, and in
What
the last couple of
about
weeks,
10
they've just
days?
gone. The last couple of weeks, they've just gone. Oh, let's talk about things again, and they've almost forgotten that actually not to do their job properly. I mean, yeah, absolutely hilarious kind of thing. But there you
All
go.
right, well, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah, all good. There's other sports going on. Always things going. You got the golf, and you got a bit of cycling, you got a bit of cricket and things like that. A bit of rugby. So good. Not the greatest football. There's what 3, 4 good games to watch this weekend, probably.
James, how much sport do you think I can get away with watching with the in-laws here?
A lot, and take advantage of it.
It's called work. It's called work.
I'll see you on Sunday, yeah, to watch Newcastle West Ham, yeah. All right, everyone. Anyway, have a good weekend all, and we'll speak to you all on Monday. All right.
Thanks, mate.